She's a leader, politician, diplomat, and a peace negotiator who played prominent role of the independence of Kosovo. She is known as one of the key protagonists of political changes in Kosovo and the Balkans. She is recognized as the only woman peace negotiator in the Balkans who has been participating in international peace processes. She was also Minister of Dialogue, Minister of Public Administration, and Member of Parliament in 5 terms. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, put your hands together to welcome former Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Chief Negotiator of Kosovo, Edita Tahiri. Ma'am, we welcome you on our show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here. Greetings from Kosovo to India, to all people, but especially women in this important month of historic anniversary.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, I hope I did not make any mistake in pronouncing your name.
Very good, very good.
So, ma'am, my conversation starts off, since my channel is oriented towards women, so my conversation starts from that point only. As we see, women everywhere are breaking the glass ceiling in politics and, you know, holding high positions like you, high roles. But I personally feel, and I think across the world, it is being felt that their voices still go unheard and their contribution is often sort of sidelined. How do you reflect on this?
Well, I think there have been changes in the status of women worldwide. However, the changes have been rather slow and diverse. If we look at 20 years since the adoption of UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and WPS agenda, we cannot be satisfied.
Yes.
There are, of course, empowerment of women, increase of participation in many areas of public life. However, we are still underrepresented in politics, in decision making, and particularly in formal peace processes.
Yes.
So we are not in the tables where decisions are being made for future, for peace, for prosperity and development. And I think that we have to reflect on the past, but also try together to discuss and share ideas and strategies so we really can be at the center of leadership in the world and in our countries, equally with men.
Yes.
Because woman has important potential.
Yes.
It's half of human's capital. So rationally, 50% of the humans say it, knowledge or humans skills and whatever it goes, but it has also some comparative advantages being more peace drivers, I would say, more dialogue oriented, more looking to the peace from the perspective of the citizens' needs rather than just resolving the wars or conflicts. Like, I think men are more for ending the violence, ending the wars, but woman looks at peace building in sustainable terms. That is how I did in all my 30 years of career in liberating my country, reaching independence of my country and my people. I focused a lot to see that our independence brings happiness, brings prosperity to people.
Yes.
And that is, well, these days when I debate for peace and security, I say that we have to expand the view towards peace and security and move to sustainable peace and move to security, which involves also human security along with national security. So these are conceptual changes we have to fight for, along with empowerment of women in decision making.
Right. Wonderful, ma'am. So, ma'am, I would love to understand what has been the biggest change for women in Kosovo since the Beijing platform for action was adopted. The change that you saw in your country, Kosovo.
First, I'm glad to say that I was part of the Beijing conference
Wow.
in 1995. And the interesting is that at that time my country was occupied and people were being killed by Serbia and the notorious regime of Milosevic, which later escalated to the genocide against Albanians in Kosovo. So my Beijing participation was not only to promote women's rights, but also to promote Kosovan people's rights and to call the world to prevent the war and support the independence and self-determination of our people. So it is an example that I try always to say that we women should be in politics, decision making, in peace processes, not only for gender agenda,
yes,
but also to contribute for changes that comes out of these processes and are beneficial to all. Of course, we are discriminated yet and we have to work more for us. However, I think our role should be both working for changes for better world and working for changes that one day we become equal with men, and we should not wait another century.
true.
We have to shorten this road to gender equality. Regarding Kosovo, during the liberation processes, 89, 99, women has been actively involved in supporting the movement for independence, and that body called Women's Forum was looking more for people's, I would say, needs, and less we were in politics. I was only woman in the leadership of the movement for independence and foreign minister of an occupied country for 10 years, lobbying in the world for rights of Albanians and Kosovo. Not many were in the presidency. I was alone. However, women were in every levels of liberation, and after the war in every levels of peace building, reconstruction after war, healing the wounds, reconciliation. Even we expanded activities in the region because all the region was in the wars. So we created 5 years after the ending of wars, the regional women's lobby in Southeastern Europe, working together to empower women and but also help peace building, Euro-Atlantic integration, reconciliation, and really put the tragedies in the past, not to forget them, to make sure genocide will not happen again to our people, and to have progress in our countries. So youth to not look abroad, to not look of leaving the country, but to see the hope in our countries.
Right, right. So, ma'am, as it has often been seen that whenever war happens anywhere in any part of the world, women and children are most vulnerable and prone to being hit the hardest. The impact comes hardest on women and children. And we see enormous contribution of women during the war in Kosovo also, and in peacetime, in peacemaking process in Balkan. So, ma'am, as we know that you have been addressing this reconciliation and transitional justice on women victim of war, we would definitely love you to put some light on this issue and your endeavors regarding this.
Well, dealing with consequences of war is one of the main challenges of post-war periods.
Yes.
Along with the challenge to decide for peace, which is very difficult, to negotiate peace is very difficult. And
Yes.
I was in all processes of making peace with our former enemy. And after the war, looking at women and children as most vulnerable, as you rightly say, was in a way that we first worked in internationalizing the issue of raped women during the war in Kosovo, but not only in Kosovo. We work also jointly with Croatia and Bosnia.
Yes.
Because in all these three countries, there have been a huge number of raped women.
Yes, yes.
We have addressed the United Nations Security Council with letters, Secretary General. I met with the Special Representative of United Nations for raped women, Madame Pamela Patten, earlier with Madame Bangura.
Okay.
So to make it known that we have to put more official light on what has happened, and we want that UN prepares with our national institutions reports on what has happened, because we need official reports so to be able to move to ask for international justice, for international mechanisms, and for perpetrators to not go unpunished. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we still have situations that perpetrators are not punished, and this is not only issue of Kosovo or the Balkans. Even in the world, there are a lot of overlooking. These things even are being kept hidden, but I try to unpack and say that reconciliation can come when justice acts, and one of the big justices is to have redress the women who were victims and also punishment for perpetrators.
Right, right.
Without this is a political justice, we cannot think of sustainable peace in Balkans and abroad and beyond. To also tell you more that in Kosovo, I organized a popular petition with requests for international justice for women in Kosovo. It was very important. It broke the taboo, because societies, especially if they are with patriarchal elements, do not like to mention the issue of rape of women.
Yes.
This popular petition that I organized with the Board of Women that I created, broader spectrum board of politics and civil society women, we secured 130,000 signatures. Imagine, more were men than women signing the petition.
Yeah.
Then I presented this petition to Secretary General of UN through Madame Patten, who is Deputy Secretary in charge of these issues. Plus, we work a lot in local peace buildings in terms of creating dialogue between communities, because after the war, society fabric is quite divided.
Yes.
And we work a lot in Kosovo for that. But more than that, we have been very, very good in bringing ourselves in political power and in parliament and government. Imagine, immediately after the war, we saw ourselves in sidelines. We didn't accept that, because we have been doing incredible contribution for liberation, maintaining the resistance and moral of population. So we really succeeded to convince our colleagues, politicians, and implemented quota of 30% in parliament and local assemblies 1 year after the war. So we didn't let it go. We brought ourselves in parliament. However, in government, still there is no quota, hence there is no stability in women's representations.
Yes.
Sometimes it's more, sometimes less. And my message for all women in the world is, we should not be happy only with numbers. We need power, and that is political power. Political power comes from being active and involving in politics, in political parties, and aiming leaderships,
Yes.
aiming the table of decision, because we really have good vision. We have some interesting approaches for democratic governance.
Yes.
Not that I am saying, even science is proving that women are less corrupted, more
Yes.
solution oriented, more ethical in taking the responsibilities. So I think we have a lot in terms of the arguments. So to make, I would say, groundbreaking changes in the future. 20 years of resolution 1325 or 25 years of Beijing platform did not bring what we expected. More was in the level of commitments than in real empowerment of women. So
True.
we have to be much more united, much more cooperating. And I appreciate it when you asked me for this interview, because this is to stretch our hands between India, Kosovo, Balkans, so to cooperate and reinforce each other for our struggle for power. I call our struggle, it's gender equality, stopping discrimination against women, but above all, I call it power balance between woman and man.
Yes, ma'am. In fact, it is our pleasure to have such a conversation with you and to know more about Kosovo and your endeavors on this front. So, ma'am, moving on to my next question, which is more related to this Corona times and domestic violence. I think that is again a universal problem which we have seen suddenly spike in the rates of domestic violence across the world. It is being reported. It is not in one country, but it is, I think, from almost every country it is being reported that the domestic violence has gone up due to pandemic and lockdown situations. So, ma'am, how, as a country, you have been dealing with this situation, especially when you have been on the front of women empowerment? How do you see this can be solved?
Well, I think, as I also read news from different parts of the world, I think that challenges to women are very similar in every country in the
Yes,
world, with different levels of consequences.
right.
However, domestic violence have been appearing or reappearing without borders. It was, I think, everywhere.
Yes,
And in Kosovo, by seeing these, say it, unfortunate developments during the pandemic time, so we have worked hard, government institutions, women's mechanisms, women civil society, politicians, parliamentarians together to adopt some additional measures that would increase the protection of women and will hamper men
yeah,
in exerting violence. This has been measures of protection, but measures also of punishment. Justice was much more active and with increased measures of trying to prevent. Not that we could eliminate all, but we work against that issue and work for protection of women. Whereas in general, we have tried to lobby that recovery programs, national programs, to reflect gender sensitivity,
mhm,
because woman is usually in the forefront of humanitarian issues. Even during pandemia, we saw doctors and nurses are more women.
right.
Then we saw in the schools teachers are more women. So we are at forefront of response, but we are lacking at the decision making for recovery. So we have been a lot debating and asking that we should be there, and parliamentarians have been also very active in this sense to have gender responsive recovery program, so to lessen the consequences of this unfortunate and unusual pandemics we have. In this regard, we have to work more. I'm sure you in India too. This goes, I would say, Raini, with our strategy of overall empowerment. So it's more we are in decision making. National level, where the national policies are being designed and decided, we really has to be there at the table, and then we can cover any other areas much better than only through lobbying and advocacy. So my recommendation is, yes, we work for lobbying and advocacy, but we have to be more and more, and one day equal in the decision making. That should be our final goal, which will really bring just work and bring the integrated vision for the future, gender integrated vision for the future. As we are talking about this, being in decision making, I think Kosovo has been quite advanced in this matter compared to other countries in the region and maybe beyond, because I have been also chief negotiator in Kosovo for normalizing relations with Serbia, with our former enemy, for 7 years, which tells that I was in the Rambouillet Peace Conference to stop the war and make peace, and then 7 years to help normalization of animals relations. So, and for this, I am the only woman peace negotiator and chief negotiator in international processes in the Balkans. I think Kosovo has done very interesting, contribution for empowerment, but it didn't come because I was woman. It came because I was, from the first days of occupation of Kosovo, I was active, and I became one of the founders of the movement. So to be able to take responsibilities and roles, I strongly recommend women to involve in difficult issues with high interest for the society from the beginning. Because
and coming to the plight of rural women, which I feel across East Europe, I have been talking with various leaders in East Europe. I think that's really not very good, the plight of women. So, ma'am, being someone who is chairing regional women's lobby in Southeast Europe for past 14 years, what suggestions do you have that you feel can bring radical changes in the plight of rural women in Southeast Europe?
Well, I think that we have to invest more on local peace building. And we have to have a focus of giving voice to rural women. And that is possible through combining the cooperation between women from civil society at local level and women in local government as a forum which will allow rural women to be heard by local government, and then elevate these requests and this voice to national government. I think it's necessary to create platforms of dialogue and discussion, necessary to ensure participation of all actors, all stakeholders, and creating channels of communication between rural women up to the national government. If their voices and needs are not heard, then they will not be addressed. So I think that women should create coalitions of politics and civil society at local level, then join perhaps with national level, like lobbying with parliamentarians, with ministers. Very important is to create the missing channel of communication between rural women and public
Urban. Yes,
authorities.
yes, yes, yes.
As you said from the beginning, women remain unheard. They are very active in their will, in their action. However, the contribution is not valued, and unfortunately, the voices remain unheard.
Unheard.
It's
Yeah.
one of the ways of overcoming is establishing missing link between authorities of
Yes.
country of all levels and the women who are affected, in this case, rural or whatever area they are affected.
Right, ma'am. And ma'am, being an experienced leader, what advice do you have for all our women viewers who are watching you?
Well, I think that we have to remain enthusiastic, hopeful.
Mhm.
Change will come,
Yes.
but change will not come by themselves. We have to make changes ourselves.
Right.
Changes start from us,
Yes.
from our actions, from our vision, from our strategy and knowledge base. So to move the man world in a joint journey for equality and equal participation of women in decision making in peace processes and in all other relevant processes. Changes are happening,
Yes.
not only in my country or India, or even at the global level, we see women in the leaderships of organizations. This should serve us as inspiration, but we should not stop any second. We have to work hard to reach our dream of just society, just world, and that is the world of equality between both genders.
Ma'am, thank you so much for having such an insightful and enriching conversation with us. We wish
I
you,
have a message. I don't know if you want to transfer the political message. I will say it, then
please,
you will know.
please,
Well, it's up to you if you want them to transfer or to cut.
no,
But
not
I
really.
will tell the message. It's
Yes.
political.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, once again, I am glad that I'm talking to a woman personality from India and having this important interview for empowerment of women, which is in fact empowerment of society. And given that India has not yet recognized my country, Kosovo, I would like to call on India to think about it, because Kosovo is a young state, is born out of justice, is born out of the tragedies and oppressions we faced as a nation. We are glad that we could exercise self-determination, and we had the Western support and even military intervention for liberation done by United States and NATO. I think it's on India to think of us and to move on with recognition.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful message. And thank you so much for having such a meaningful, insightful conversation with us. We wish you all the best and your wonderful country, Kosovo. All the best. And forward to having more collaborations with you in future. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Raini. It was a pleasure. I wish you good luck and don't stop working for women.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We truly appreciate it. Thank you
Okay.
guys for
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. Take care and see you.